Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started then. Again, thanks to everyone for joining us today. We're going to talk about the CNP program, particularly for students who are at a college campus. So if you want to hang out with us and you're not at a college campus, you are more than welcome to. But this particular presentation will be geared towards our college friends.
So good afternoon. I am Keely O'Sullivan Kurtz. I am the Director of CNP programs at the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance. I have been happily serving in this role since 2019. Coincidentally, that's also when I earned my own CNP. Prior to joining the Alliance, I lived and worked in Chicago doing a lot of association work, some in the healthcare field, doing more advocacy kinds of things. I am so happy to be here with you all. And a fun fact about me is that this weekend I'm going to go on a fall float in a Missouri river, and I cannot wait for those fall leaves.
I'm muted. That's so fun, Keely. So everyone, my name is Ariel Kaler. I'm our CNP programs manager. I also earned my CNP in 2019 whenever I graduated from a college campus. And a fun fact about me that I always love to share is other than working at Baskin-Robbins, the ice cream store, I've only ever worked in nonprofits. So in high school, that's what I was known for, scooping ice cream. That was my thing. But ever since then, I've really delved deep into the nonprofit world.
Also, I feel like you're the person in my life who loves ice cream more than anyone.
That is a true fact, probably.
So now that you all know a little bit about who we are and where we come from, I think this is a fun time for us to get a sense of maybe who you all are and where you come from and what you're bringing to us today. And if I'm not mistaken, Ariel, this is time for a poll.
Yes.
Let's see. One moment, please. Here we go. All right, what you all should be seeing on your screen right now is a question. What do you know about the CNP credential?
Keely, I don't see the poll, but
yeah, I do see responses coming in,
okay,
and I'll be sure to publish them in just a moment. Oh, okay. And again, the options were never heard of it. The first option is never heard of it. The second one is, oh, I know what the CNP stands for. I'm kind of familiar with it. And then the third option is, I'm an expert. So let me end poll and share those results. So it looks like today we have a lot of folks that have some familiarity with the credential, and you're in the right space because we're definitely going to dive into it more. Okay, so thank you for sharing. What we have on our agenda, we are going to start off by giving you a brief introduction to who the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance is. That's who we work for, and that's who administers the credential. We're going to talk broadly about what a credential is and how that is valuable in today's career market. Then we're going to hone in and really focus in on the CNP credential and what the experience is like to earn that credential as a student at the collegiate level. And then we're going to talk about our online platform, CNP Central. That is where you go to submit your requirements for the credential, access resources, connect with other professionals, all kinds of good stuff. And then we will have questions at the end.
So who is the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance? I think some of you might be familiar with us based on our poll, but just a couple more details. We were founded actually 75 years ago. This is our 75th year anniversary, which is exciting, yes. But yeah, so we were founded in response to the need for well-qualified nonprofit professionals. The credential, the CNP, was created to make sure that nonprofit professionals were capable employees and could further their organization's missions. And so decades later, that is what we are still doing. And one thing that I think I forgot to mention is if you have any questions as we're going through this, feel free to drop them in the chat, come off mute, ask your question. We would love for this to be more of a conversation. Okay, so a quick definition for you is a nonprofit organization is a legal entity organized and operated for a collective public or social benefit. In contrast to that, for-profit organizations or companies are entities that operate as a business, and their kind of main goal is to generate profit for its owners. So maybe a myth to dispel for you today is that nonprofits do exist to also make money. The difference is where that money goes. So our goal as nonprofit organizations is to put it back into our constituents and invest in our people that we're serving. Whereas for-profit organizations, their goal is to really put it back into their pockets or their stakeholders' pockets. The nonprofit sector is huge. It's made up of diverse organizations, everything from food banks to homeless shelters to dance studios, scout troops, anything you could probably think of. All of that encompasses a diverse array of missions. And any interest you have, there's probably a nonprofit for it. And if there's not one, you could probably start it. So a couple things that I think we already know is, our world has been it's been some uncertain times the last few years. People's everyday lives have been interrupted, from evictions to losing jobs, not having access to food. People have been struggling. But one thing that I think nonprofits do really well is we're able to meet people where they're at. Our nonprofit organizations and the employees that are supporting them are playing essential roles, and they'll continue to do that in the future.
And I think, like, when I think about the nonprofit sector broadly, there has been the past few years, a lot of news about nonprofits going out of business, as well as for-profits going out of business. It's been a hard time, but what the data indicate is that despite the results of COVID, over the past 10 years, we really have seen an increase in the number of nonprofit organizations that are doing this really good work that Ariel is talking about.
Absolutely.
And we only anticipate that to continue to rise.
Definitely. So whenever we think about having a nonprofit career, one thing that we think is super beneficial, and we've found through research, or has been founded through research, is online credentials are super helpful. We have continued to see an increase in online credential programs. This graphic is from 2020. It was a study done by Inside Higher Ed. And as you can see, the non-degree credential is soaring compared to graduate and undergraduate programs. Now, I know most of you are in school, and so I think a great opportunity is to pair an online credential with your current schooling and put them together. People in all careers and levels of expertise, from graduate programs, undergraduate programs, to professional workers, they're all looking for specialized practical information to help take their careers to the next level. And they want to do that at their own pace and on their own time. And typically that looks like online. So a couple of benefits that online credentials provide is a portfolio of resources that you get to keep forever. It helps you build a national network rather than a localized one. Helps you enhance a specific skill set that you are choosing. And as I mentioned a second ago, it's fully online. I think most oftentimes meaningful credentials and experience are generally best found through your peers. And there are tons of college students who are out there looking to get their CNP and getting their CNP right now. And as someone who got their certified nonprofit professional credential in college, and I work for the Alliance now, so I'm a little bit biased, but right out of college, my CNP was super, super helpful in helping me land my first job that I really loved and enjoyed.
So looking at credentials broadly, to the information that Ariel shared, we know that credentials are important and helpful when you're looking for that career, that job that you want to pursue. And it also helps you be equipped for that job so that you're successful. We know that the CNP, based on a third-party study that was done of the CNP, that it really does help CNP holders rise to those positions of leadership in those nonprofit organizations. So the CNP was investigated by LinkedIn, and LinkedIn found that when they compared individuals at the same organization, if there are these two groups of people, they had similar backgrounds, similar education, but one had the CNP. That group that had the CNP, they were 7 times more likely to rise to a leadership position. LinkedIn also uncovered the fact that there are CNPs working in so many disciplines in the nonprofit sector, and oftentimes those CNPs are those CEOs, those executive directors, those CFOs, those people that are like high ranking in the nonprofit hierarchy. And I know, whenever it's time, whether you already work at a nonprofit or you're in school and you're getting ready to look for that role at a nonprofit, it is so helpful to even just have that CNP connection with those leaders at that organization. What a helpful thing to tool when you're looking for that role, to reach out to that person. You have that similar experience. It's a great thing to leverage whenever you're applying for those roles. And also, a lot of Ariel and I are really focusing our presentation on what it's like to work professionally in the nonprofit sector. We love it. We continue to be nonprofit professionals, but even if you don't work for the nonprofit sector, whether you work for the government or a for-profit organization, I guarantee you that you will in some way overlap with the nonprofit world, whether that's serving on a school board, or not a school board, but like a school group, or homeowners agencies. There are nonprofits everywhere. And no matter what career path you take, it is likely that you will interact with nonprofits, and the CNP will really give you an understanding of how to be successful in that volunteer role. Okay, that was a bit of a tangent. Getting back to the CNP in particular, we've talked about how there's independent research done by LinkedIn. We know that CNPs are successful in the nonprofit sector. When you are earning the CNP, as well as once you have the CNP, you have access to so many different career resources, whether that's our job board that lives in CNP Central, or it's a free webinar or an article about how you can better find that work-life balance, or tips and tricks on how to negotiate that salary, whether you are just getting that job or maybe you've been at a job for a few years and it's time to renegotiate that salary. Those kinds of things are available to individuals who enroll in the CNP program. Ariel and I have both touched on already the value of the CNP network, and I'm just going to stress it for y'all one more time. Whenever you are, the nonprofit sector is so valuable because of the work that it does. It can be very competitive because a lot of people are trying to do that values-driven, that mission-driven work. And so having the skills that the CNP provides, as well as having this network of people that you can either tool for that role, or you can, use one of them as a mentor, help you learn about the different roles in the nonprofit sector. The network cannot be overstated. And then last, but certainly not the least, the CNP is very helpful because it does provide you with a digital badge. So you go through the CNP program, you get Credential. You can, download a certificate if you want to be someone. I think both Ariel and I have our certificates framed, but you also have a digital badge. The digital badge is helpful because you can save it to your social platforms. I will say the place that the majority of our CNPs save it. They save it in multiple places, but LinkedIn is definitely the number one. And that is very helpful because that's where the majority of hiring agencies and hiring agents are. And that CNP indicates on your profile metadata, and that metadata says that you have key understanding of important nonprofit competencies, management and leadership, fundraising, budgeting and financial management. All of that is tied to your CNP digital badge on your profile and makes you easily searchable by hiring managers. Anything else here, Ariel? I definitely took us on a sidetrack at one point. I think I circled us back around. Anything else you want to add?
It was so great, Keely. Thanks for sharing all of that. And I always love the tangents. They're always very purposeful. I will say, we did have a question in the chat. I believe Angie asked. Oh, actually, she messaged me directly. Sorry, Angie, to call you out, but she asked if she will get a copy of the slide deck, and we're happy to send that out and share with people after this. So definitely, thanks for asking.
Yeah, that's a really good question. We could have shared that earlier. We'll share the PDF version of this, but we are also recording today. I don't know if you want to watch it twice, but we are recording.
Yes, or share with friends that you may have or anything like that. Feel free. And then we've talked a little bit about nonprofit organizations and some of their missions and credentials. Keely, I think we have a second poll to kind of ask people what missions they're interested in. If we could maybe pull that up, I would love to kind of hear a little bit from everyone what they're interested in.
Okay. Second poll has launched.
Perfect.
I'm really interested. Oh, sorry. What were you going to say, Ariel?
No, go ahead.
We did a poll like this actually with a different group of folks yesterday, and we were so surprised to see where everyone's interest lies. And I'm going to be fascinated to see if you all align with the responses from yesterday. Oh, okay. Okay.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Keely.
Okay.
Right in my mind.
All right. I see 11 out of 14. We'll just do this for like 1 or 2 more seconds to get your responses in. Okay. I think that's good. Let me end the poll, and I'm going to share results. Are you able to see that now, Ariel?
I'm not.
Okay. Well, what I can share,
Yeah,
I everyone else can because they are viewers and you're the co-host, but basically it's a really even spread. We have a group of people who are interested in education, human rights, social justice, healthcare. I will say in the poll that we did yesterday, it was far and beyond the responses were related to healthcare. Folks are really interested in the environment and energy efficiencies. And then, yeah, so honestly, a very widespread of responses. And I think one thing that I love about the nonprofit sector is that it really does appeal to people that are values driven. And oftentimes, like, I'm not driven by just one issue area. I know Ariel's not driven by one issue area. And so you get to work alongside people who, of course, are aligned with you on the mission that you're pursuing, but they have all these different interests. And something else I've learned working in the nonprofit sector is that it is really valuable and rewarding when you get to collaborate with people who are well aligned with your values. So in summary, thank you all for sharing that. And I just appreciate that.
Yeah. And I think I would add to that too. The level of involvement that you can have in the nonprofit sector, I think is really cool because you get to really pick what that looks like. So, I mean, Keely mentioned this earlier, but you can work full time or you can work part time or you can volunteer or you can be on a board. Like there's just so many different ways to invest yourself and be involved in, causes that you care about. And our goal is to help you do that and do it well. So with that, I'm going to segue into, we've hinted at the Certified Nonprofit Professional Credential, the CNP. So now we're going to kind of talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of how the program works. I know everyone is itching for me to go over this slide that's about earning the CNP. So we have 5 requirements for the CNP. The first one is education. Typically that looks like a bachelor's degree. It could be a master's, PhD, different levels for different people. So whenever you graduate from your program, you would upload that document and then go from there. That would complete your first requirement. Then the second one is nonprofit experience. And for our collegiate-based program, that is met by 120 hours of working or interning at a nonprofit organization. These experiences can be online or in person. That 120-hour mark can be met with a couple different experiences that you bring together. And it can be done over time. So one thing that's cool about the CNP program, I think, is that you can meet any of these requirements in any particular order. So you kind of get to, Keely and I say this a lot, but create your own adventure with, how you kind of piece it together and meet that requirement.
Really quickly, Ariel, I feel like one question we get a lot about the nonprofit experience is, hey, I have a class that's requiring me to do an internship. Does that satisfy the CNP requirement? And it absolutely does.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We want you to double dip. We want you to use experiences that you either already have or are going to have with other people for sure. Then our third requirement is a volunteer service activity. That is 20 hours of volunteering at a nonprofit organization. And I see we have a question. What about past experience? Definitely. Typically, with our collegiate-based program specifically, we want that experience to be during your time in college. But outside of college, we say any time within the last 2 years that can really be met. Would you agree, Keely?
Oh, for sure. A lot of people enroll in the CNP program their freshman year. Many also do their junior year. And so if you're a junior and you're enrolling and you did an internship your freshman or sophomore year, totally above board and will definitely count.
Perfect. Our fourth requirement is leadership development, and that is our way of saying we want you to attend a national nonprofit conference. We host one every year in February called Elevate. It's fully online. We record it all, and then you get to have access to it for up to 30 days after the conference is over, or you can attend another conference that is exciting and important to you. Kind of our goals with that is we want it to be nonprofit-based content. We want it to be a multi-day experience, and we want there to be some component of networking. And then our fifth and final requirement for earning the CNP is passing the CNP exam. And so the way that you do that is you go through our CNP study guide. It really equips you with all the knowledge and information that you would need to pass the CNP exam. And Keely's going to talk a little bit about the details of that in just a second. But a little bit more about the CNP exam itself. It's 100 questions, all true, false, or multiple choice. Whenever you sit for the exam, you have 2 hours to take it, and you do have 2 attempts to take the exam. So if you don't quite pass on the first try, you always get a follow-up email that says, here are some specific areas that you could do a little bit better in. And I always say this, like, our goal is for you to be successful on your first try. I think, Keely, we were just talking to people yesterday about how there is like an 85% passing rate on the first try of the exam. It's higher than that. Yes. I think we do a good job of kind of equipping students to feel good about taking the exam. And if you ever have questions, that's what I'm here for, and that's what Keely's here for. Our goal is to really walk with you through the program. So yeah, if you have something to add to that, Keely, I would love to hear.
No, I think you covered it really well. Yeah. Oh, I guess, let me see if it's time for me to segue to the actual study guide. It's okay if I hop forward, Ariel, and we'll go back right before the game. We're doing some improv because it just seems to make sense based on our conversation. So I feel like the study guide is a tool that complements what you're already learning in your classrooms, as well as what you're doing at your volunteerism role and your professional development experience. The study guide goes through main nonprofit competencies that we know will help make you successful in the nonprofit sector. The study guide, you log in whenever your schedule allows for you to, and it's this really like user-friendly and engaging platform that goes through these different modules of content. There are, you'll have some TED Talks, you'll have some articles, there'll be some slide decks. All of this key content is coming to you in different ways. I also think it's important, hearkening back to Ariel saying that everyone is on their own, nonprofit journey. We're all making our own adventure. Some of you, might be partaking in a nonprofit management specific major. So you might be really familiar with like budgeting and financial management. When that happens, you can certainly kind of speed through that section of the study guide. If you aren't majoring in nonprofit management, which is also lovely as a political science major, you might not have had access to some of these things in the study guide, and that means you can slow down and really dive into that content. Throughout the study guide, there are little, they're called knowledge checks. So in each of these modules, there are 4 different lessons. At the end of each of those lessons, there is a knowledge check, which gives you an opportunity to check on your knowledge. Are you retaining the key concepts that we want you to learn from those competencies? Those knowledge checks are also really helpful because they are framed in the same way that the CNP exams questions are framed. So if you're going through the study guide, you're doing well on the knowledge checks, I guarantee you will do well on the exam. Trying to think, anything else, Ariel, on the study guide? Did I skip anything?
I don't think so. I think that was great.
All right, then let me hop back one slide and give it back to you.
Perfect. So just a quick step-by-step of how you enroll in the CNP program. I'm going to drop this link in the chat as well. But whenever you go to enroll in the program, you will want to look for your specific campus partner track form. Step one, you'll want to find this form. Like I said, I'm going to drop it in the chat. You're going to want to choose your university. Then once you do that, fill it out. Complete the program fee. You will receive an email with login instructions and next steps in about 4 hours after you do that. Take some processing time on our end. Once you get that email, you'll create your username and password. And then I encourage you to always bookmark the CNP Central homepage, because hopefully you're going to return back to it frequently. Use those resources that we have that we're going to talk about in just a second. Input the requirements that we just talked about, the 5, and also access that study guide that Keely just went over.
All righty. So let's say you enroll in the CNP program, you give our system a little time to do its thinking, then you get an email that's saying, welcome to CNP Central. Please set up your username and password and log in. We recommend you hop in there immediately and start getting the lay of the CNP Central land. This is a screenshot of the home page, and there are just so many resources for you to take advantage of in CNP Central. We have a lot of our nonprofit professionals who are contributing like their thought leadership. They write blogs a couple times a month. You can find that in CNP Central. We host free events to keep you updated on nonprofit trends and overall workforce information. For example, we're getting ready for next Thursday, the 26th, we're going to have a fantastic presenter talking about mental health in the workplace and how to move beyond awareness for mental health into a culture at organizations that support mental health. We have discussion boards, maybe you're in a class and you're doing a review of an organization's mission and you're stuck on something, or you have a question, or maybe you're volunteering to write a grant for an organization and you're stuck on a question. Whatever the case might be, there are over 12,000 CNPs in CNP Central. You can hop onto those discussion boards, ask your question, and then you can anticipate people in our network providing you real-time feedback on that question. So CNP Central is just a wealth of resources. Something else, and I promise I'll move on very quickly, Ariel, but I just have to mention it. Also, a program that we recently revamped a little bit is called Mentor Match. It's a completely virtual mentorship program wherein our CNP students at our collegiate campuses, you get to sign up to be a mentee. So you fill out a little mentee profile, and then you can look through our directory of mentors. These mentors, based on how you filled out your profile, your mentee profile, you share that you're interested in one of 3 different experiences, or a variety of those 3. Those include things like you want to have someone review your resume and your LinkedIn profile. You can do like an informational interview. Let's say you were someone who checked off that you were interested in environmental work. So maybe you want to find someone who's working at an environmental nonprofit and get some of your questions answered. What does that industry look like right now? What are some of the key trends that you should be aware of as someone who's interested in that industry? And then the third experience is a more open-ended 3 to 6 month mentorship program where you get to connect with a mentor and really determine what you want that mentorship relationship to look like. So again, done with the tangent. CNP Central has a ton of resources. What I want to focus on in our time together today is really learning more about those requirements for the CNP. So where to go to do that, and then how do you actually submit that information to earn the credential. So Again, here's the homepage. We're logged in as Miss Ariel Kaler, CNP, and we want to go to our CNP dashboard. There are a couple of ways to do that. On the screen, you'll see that quick links on the bottom right-hand side. There's a box that says My CNP Dashboard. You can also, on the top tabs, there's the CNP, and there's a link for the dashboard there as well. So let's say we clicked over to the My CNP dashboard and you arrive on this page. This page has two things of interest. You have all of these orange icons. All of these refer to those requirements that Ariel reviewed earlier. Whenever you click on those orange icons, it takes you to a page. We'll go to one of those. And then you also have the My CNP dashboard on the right-hand side. You will see these requirements duplicated here as well. Whenever you complete a requirement, you get those little white check marks. Because Ariel has her CNP, hers are already checked. Okay, so back to these 5 different orange icons. I'm here. I just logged into CNP Central for the first time. Let's learn a little bit more about the requirements. I just clicked on the volunteer service experience requirement, and you navigate to this page. Each of our requirement pages offer you a little bit of information on why this is a requirement for the CNP. Volunteerism, I mean, so many people volunteer every year, and if you interact with a nonprofit, chances are so good that you will either interact with volunteers or even manage them. So you get some of that information. It's reiterated that the requirement is 20 hours of volunteerism at a nonprofit organization. Ooh, one question we get sometimes is, does it matter what kind of nonprofit you volunteer at? Does it have to be a 501c3 or not? We are not picky about that. We just want you to volunteer at a nonprofit. So you do a little bit of learning, and then it's time, because maybe you had already volunteered your freshman year, and so you want to report that experience. You click on the orange button that says Report Volunteer Experience, and a form populates on the screen. This form asks a little bit about your volunteerism. You know, what organization was it? Who is the key contact at the organization, and their contact information. And then we do, in a very short way, ask you to share a little bit of your reflection. What did you do there, and what did you learn while you were volunteering? After you put all of that information in, you click a certification button that the information is accurate and meets the requirement for volunteerism for the CNP program, and then you click submit. I do see a chat popped in. Ooh, an international organization. Yes, we are comfortable with you volunteering at an international organization. It's a good question. And if there are other questions about this requirement or any of the others, and if that experience satisfies it, you did the perfect thing, Pedro, and asked. Whenever that happens down the road, Ariel is your go-to person, and she will help you navigate what satisfies. But long story short, thumbs up on that experience. Okay, so let's go back really quickly. I'm not going to go through every one of these requirements, because the process is kind of a rinse, wash, repeat. You click through the nonprofit experience. That's where you talk about your internship. When you go to the leadership development experience, that's when you talk about your conference experience. One note on that, if you do go to a conference that isn't hosted by the Alliance, which is just fine, you do have a little bit more information to provide. You know, when was the conference, who hosted it, what were those networking events, what kind of sessions did you go to? Just because we weren't at that conference, we want to make sure that you are getting out of it what we intend to satisfy this requirement. The other part of that is, if you do go to the Alliance's conference, we host a 3-day virtual conference every February. The next one is February 27th through 29th. The rate for students in our program is $80 for the entire 3 days. But if you go to that one, you don't even need to worry about filling out this information. We know you went, we can see your participation, and we check that off. Nonprofit knowledge and skills. This is where you access the CNP study guide. And once you take that CNP exam, which is also in CNP Central, and you pass that exam, it'll mark off that requirement for you. And then last, but certainly not the least, is the education requirement, wherein you finish the CNP program, or sorry, when you finish your degree and you're able to upload that information to education. All right, we've run through those requirements and touched on some of the main points of CNP Central. I feel like I've laundry listed a lot of things. Ariel, anything you think we should emphasize before we move on?
The only thing that I usually say at this point is once you do fill out one of those requirements, give it about 24 hours before you expect those check marks to populate, because it does take some processing time on our end. But Keely, I think you covered it perfectly.
All right, well, we are going to continue on. Okie dokie. So again, you've enrolled in the program. You've gone to CNP Central. You've completed those 5 requirements. What do you do with your CNP? Like, how do you leverage your CNP to be this marketable person in the nonprofit sector? So what you see on the screen, that is the digital badge, that like CNP icon. You receive an email. It has this this data already associated with it. So really you get instructions that are very easy for you to add this to your LinkedIn profile. A question that we get a fair amount is, okay, I've added that to my LinkedIn. How do I represent all of the learning and all of the experiences I did in order to, like, how do I frame that up in a nice way on my resume? This is one example from a real world CNP, Ms. Katie Rossman. She put this on her resume. It highlights what the credential's name is, as well as those core competencies that you have been tested on through the CNP exam. So again, by listing these out, she didn't actually list them out one by one. She summarized it in a different way. You have options, but by putting that information there, it will help, whenever you submit your resume, there are oftentimes those, the searching, the comparison between the actual role and your resume. So this is one way that you can add this information on your resume and will help you be matched with those roles. Trying to think. Oh, another question that we get is, okay, I have the CNP on my LinkedIn. It's on my resume. How do I talk about my CNP? I do have to say that because there are so many CNPs and because the Alliance has partnered with a lot of big organizations like Make-A-Wish, Fair Trade Campaigns, we have several CNPs at United Way. Like, we really are integrated into a lot of those big organizations. Many of them do have familiarity with the CNP, which is super helpful, but sometimes they do not because there are so many credentials. But what we do provide in CNP Central is a list of talking points for you to discuss all of those things that you did to prove your accomplishment of those competencies. So once you enroll in the program, you'll have those tools. Those are also helpful, even while you're in school, when you're talking to people to land an internship or a part-time gig, those talking points are very helpful.
Okay.
All right, Ariel.
So, yeah, thanks, Keely. So as we've said several times, you've enrolled in the program, you've completed your requirements, you've got your CNP. What is next? So as Keely mentioned, she talked a little bit about a couple ways you can tool your CNP. And now I kind of want to highlight just some benefits that you have once you become a certified nonprofit professional. One thing that I want to stress is that the CNP is a durable credential. So once you have the credential, it lasts forever. There are not any like renewal fees. So the program fee that you pay will be the only thing that you pay to get the CNP forever. And we don't have any continuing education requirements, though we offer a ton of opportunities in CNP Central. So it is a durable credential. You're a member of the our Association of CNPs, and we need to update this slide. I think I say that every time we do this presentation because we no longer have 11,500 CNPs. We have over 12,000 CNPs nationwide and some internationally as well. A couple other resources that you have access to in CNP Central is our job board, our mentor match program, where you can be a mentor or become a mentee. You could post if you work at an organization once you're a CNP that is hiring, you could post those job opportunities in CNP Central. And really, one of our goals for the CNP is to show that you have a lifelong commitment to the sector and you're continuing that education and experience. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, something that you made me think of while you were sharing, Ariel, is there are a lot of credentials, and I think we're going to continue to see an increase of credentials because they are so valuable for careers. What I think was really important to me and why I pursued the CNP is that it has that broad-based understanding of the sector. For example, a couple of credentials that come to my mind are the CFRE, that's for fundraisers in the nonprofit sector. There's also the CAE, which is for association experts in the sector. Those are fantastic credentials. I did find them to be, they're really specific though, right? For fundraisers or people that are just focused on associations. Totally valid. And in fact, many of our CNPs also have those. But again, the CNP allowed me that broad-based understanding of the sector that really gave me flexibility to try different things. And it gives me those tools to be successful at a wide variety of organizations, doing a wide variety of different functions. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, thank you. And so, today we've talked a lot about our campus partnership program. So one of the benefits of going to one of our campus partners, which all of our campus partners logos are on this screen. So feel free to seek out and see if you can find your campus on there, but you do get to earn the credential for $100. So for our campus partners, they partner with us every year, and because of their partnership, we get to offer a discounted rate to their students at their campus. But don't worry, if you're not at one of these campuses, you are still more than welcome to enroll in the CNP program. That enrollment fee is $300, and we will actually be doing a more specific info session for you if you don't attend one of these campuses in January. So look forward to that. But yeah, are there any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Just to if you wait to earn the CNP while you aren't an undergraduate or graduate student, the Alliance does offer different programs for you to earn the CNP as a professional. And at that point, the price does go up a significant amount. As you can see, it's $1,800 for a professional program. And so I just want to stress how timely or how I encourage you to, clutch onto this opportunity because it does change once you get out of school. Sorry to interrupt you, Ariel.
No, that was helpful. Yeah. Anytime that I talk to people and students who are in college, I always recommend that they go through the program now because it is a different price point, and it is a different experience. And our goal is to meet college students where they're at, right? And be able to kind of double dip in the experiences that you're already having on campus. As we mentioned earlier, volunteer requirements that your campus might have, internship requirements. We just want to kind of bring it all together and put a bow on it. Great question. Someone asked, what if I'm graduating soon? I love that. So with the CNP program, you can enroll in the program at any time during your collegiate experience. So you could enroll as a freshman all the way up to senior, and then there's no time frame to complete the program. So it's not like you have to finish in a year or you're out. That is not the case. You get to take your time, as well as you can finish the program post-graduation. So typically I recommend that people finish, within 6 months of graduation, just because sometimes priorities change and things can kind of fall to the wayside, but that's not a requirement. So let's say you're graduating in December. Yes, let's say you're graduating in December, we would want you to enroll now or close to December or right around that time, and then you can complete the program after you graduate. So yes, as long as you enroll before graduation, we do have a grace period of about 6 months to a year after graduation that you could enroll, but we always encourage people to enroll while they're in school. That is a great question. Do we have any other questions? Anything that you can think of, Keely, that we haven't touched on yet?
Can I unmute and ask a question?
Yeah,
Please.
please.
Sorry, it's just a little longer. I was typing.
Yeah.
I worked in a nonprofit for 3 years before going back to get my master's, which I'm finishing now. So does that experience count towards the experience, or would it have to be new? Okay. All right, cool.
Absolutely.
That's what I was wondering. So I'm just like ahead of the game, even though I'm coming in late before I graduate. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yes, great question. And yeah, we recognize too that people have some like non-traditional experiences, right? So, if you graduated high school and you worked at a nonprofit organization for several years, and then you went to get your bachelor's or your master's, I mean, any of those experiences can count during that. If you have a specific question, one, feel free to unmute and ask now, or feel free to email me. Yes.
I think.
Go
ahead,
Erica. Someone asked if they could enroll as a graduate student. Absolutely. One thing that we encourage is for people to enroll at an undergraduate level, graduate level, PhD, other certificate program at a college. Absolutely.
In fact, some of our campuses primarily focus the CNP credential in their MPA program. So that's very appropriate. Good question, Pedro. I was going to say, Ariel, I feel like when we field these questions at the end of like the open house sessions, we get a lot of inquiries about the CNP exam. And I just want to like destigmatize the exam as much as possible. It is 100 questions. They are true, false, multiple choice. They are going to test your high level, your broad-based knowledge of what is in the study guide. We're not going to ask trick questions. If there was an article we provided that was 10 pages, it's not like, what was this one thing at the bottom of page 9? You know what I mean? Like, they are the key concepts that we test. The exam, 2 hours in length. Ooh, another question came in. Okay, I'll stop my exam little spiel, and Ariel, you can answer that one.
Yeah, thanks for asking. That is our typical, that's like our baseline requirement is a bachelor's degree. That's what we've done in the past, but we do not, I'm gonna maybe walk myself backwards, but we do not require a bachelor's degree. So some education and experience put together will, can fulfill that requirement. So you can enroll in the CNP program while you're earning an associate's degree. Our goal would be that you would also have experience to kind of put with that. But if you have a specific kind of timeline that you've looked at, I'm happy to answer like specific questions about that. But yeah, we say that a bachelor's degree is like our baseline, but we don't require that. Did I answer that well?
And you totally did. And like the point is just some like historical context. The CNP used to require a bachelor's degree, but times are changing. People have so much experience. So why would we keep people away from the CNP if they've had 20 years of experience? Why do they have to have a bachelor's degree? So we've been making an effort to remove barriers to the CNP while upholding the standards of the credential. We know that everyone is on a different journey. And so if you don't have a bachelor's degree or you aren't on a path to get it, I think that's totally fine. I recommend you reach out to Ariel because we have a lot of equivalencies that we consider, everything from military experience to maybe you've served on a board for a number of years. Everyone is different. So again, if you don't have that bachelor's degree, don't fret, just connect with Ariel and we'll figure out how to fit your experiences and your educational background together to get you to qualify. So.
Absolutely. And I did drop my email in the chat just so that everyone has it for a quick reference. All great questions. Thanks, everyone. Are there any other last minute ones? Feel free to drop it in the chat or come off mute. We're happy to answer it. That's what we're here for.
I guess something else that comes to my mind is Elevate, just to talk a little bit about the conference that the Alliance holds for social sector leaders. We've already mentioned it. I had never attended a virtual conference prior to 2020. And so just to give you a little bit of context as if you do decide to use Elevate as the way you want to satisfy that requirement. Again, it's a 3-day conference, the 27th through 29th of February this year. This year is a little bit different because we're also having a National CNP Day on Friday. But the main conference, it's for social sector leaders. We have about 500 people who attend each year. The tracks that we're looking at for this year, one is looking at this current political and social moment and how to be an advocate. We're also looking at fundraising as it becomes, as just fundraising is evolving and becoming more competitive. How do you maintain that competitive edge? And then we are doing one that's like a toolkit. What are the key elements of building a successful organization? So we have so many different speakers on so many important elements of the nonprofit sector.
And yeah, Keely, somebody asked if there's a discount for students or those who are enrolled in the program for the conference.
The answer is yes. So once you're enrolled in the program, the CNP program, you get access to the $80 rate for the 3 days of the conference. That includes everything for the conference. And that's the discounted rate.
And then someone asked, when's the next online conference you guys will host after the one in February?
Lovely question. We host them each February, but one thing that we do that we actually instituted last year, or this year, I guess, for the first time is, I think something that's really valuable about Elevate is the live element of it, because you get to interact with people in a live way. That said, if you can't make it to Elevate, don't sweat it. We do record all of those sessions and we make them available in like an on-demand version of Elevate 2024. And so you could also go through the conference on the on-demand version to have it satisfy the CNP requirement. One thing to note, whether you go through the live event, which I highly recommend, or the on-demand event, which is also just fine, we do outline like a minimum criteria of the events that you need to partake in order for the conference to satisfy the CNP requirement. So it's like you need to go to both keynotes, you need to do at least 2 different workshops, and then X amount of breakout sessions. So we try to make it as clear as possible the things you need to do in the conference setting in order to have it check off that CNP requirement. Good question. I could obviously talk about Elevate for a long, long time.
Yeah, and this is actually our 10th year anniversary of Elevate. So this will be the 10th year that we've had Elevate, which I love to say because we did have an in-person conference that we hosted prior to COVID. And then once COVID happened, that shifted things around a little bit. But we have been hosting Elevate for the last 10 years. So pre-COVID. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for your questions, and thanks for spending an hour of your day with us today. I really appreciate everything you've asked and listening to us speak. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to email us or email me. I dropped my email in the chat. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you in the CNP program. And yeah, hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.